Welcome back to Bad Boss Detox, the podcast where we grant you permission to quit your toxic job in the middle of your lunch break.
Yeah. Today's guest is living proof that not all heroes wear capes. Some of them wield shovels, microphones, and a killer voice reel. Meet Mike DeCello, voice actor, podcaster, and certified jack of all trades.
He's done everything from fighting fires and assessing risks to, you guessed it, digging actual graves. And somehow, through it all, he still manages to keep his sense of humor and sanity intact.
Okay, listeners, we've got some trigger warnings for this episode. We will be frankly discussing some tragedies in the workplace in the vein of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire and other fire-related disasters, as well as other workplace violence, including and not including the use of firearms. In addition to that, we will be discussing sexual harassment in the workplace as well. So if those are things you just don't have the bandwidth for today, that's okay. We won't take it personally. Just wanted to let you know up front. We're thrilled to have Mike on Bad Boss Detox to swap some war stories, share a few laughs, and maybe dig up a few skeletons in the workplace. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hello, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course, we are so excited. Well, how's everybody doing? How you doing, Ivy?
I'm doing great. A little hot in here in my little Oz, whatever. What was Oz's, the great Oz's little cave
Oz
called?
the Great and Powerful. I don't know what it was called. When I produced that show, it was the sound booth in our auditorium. We just had him sit in the sound booth because I was like, I'm not building something else.
Is hot as balls right now.
Yeah,
Pay no
mine is too.
attention to that man behind the curtain.
That's right. That's right. Voice actors love our little hidey holes, I guess.
Katie, how are you?
Yeah. I'm good. I have been answering a lot of messages today. Like I said, I've had a lot of people reaching out once I said that I'm taking on some voiceover students. So if you're a person who's interested in learning about voiceover, you can email me and we'll talk about it. It's going to be fun. How you doing,
what
Mike?
about you?
I am excellent. I just finished shooting a small part in I Can Only Imagine 2, which was shooting here in Franklin, and got invited to my first red carpet event. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh.
Still moving forward so that I can get out of my category 4 W-2 job.
Yes, it is a marathon, not a sprint, as they say.
100%.
But that is so cool. Awesome. So we're excited to talk to you. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to and what's your deal?
Right on. My name is Mike DeCello. Call me Mike, Mikey D. I was born and raised in New Jersey. So I was American born, made from the finest Italian parts. I moved to Southern California in my 20s and embarked on a career in loss prevention there, as well as working for the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection for a couple of years. I also did a whole bunch of other jobs in between to make ends meet. Met my wife, we got married, and we eventually ended up moving to Tennessee, where I'm at now. And I am pursuing a career in, I'm going to say entertainment now. It started off as voiceover work, which I really, really love, and it parlayed into some on-camera work. In the process of putting together a podcast. So things are just gaining momentum and rolling right along.
Yeah. I love that when things just sort of flow and you just follow the flow and see where it takes you. Magic
What is your
can happen.
podcast going to be about, Mike?
It's going to be pop culture-ish.
Okay.
And the social construct of today. So my co-host, she is about 20 years my junior. So we're bridging 2 generations. And we're going to be talking about all the pop culture things, movie reviews, pop culture stuff. She's even suggested we may even do dating apps just to see what comes out the other side of that, because it is a crazy world out there when it comes to that.
Oh, fun.
Boy, is it ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I am so glad I don't have to go down that road. And even my wife said, you should put yourself up there just to see what happens.
Oh my gosh, dude. If you're sure.
Yeah, that's a
I'm not.
It's a
dangerous,
yes, it is.
dangerous territory right there.
Probably honestly safer for you than it would be for your wife to try that out.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Yeah, women get some gnarly messages on there. So
I don't understand why some guys think that it's acceptable to say or do some of the things they're doing right
I
now,
don't
because I'm
either.
shaking my head going, fellas, stop, please.
Yeah, like shoot your shot, but don't shoot your shot with a poison arrow, my guy.
Shoot your shot, but let's not be Ted Bundy about it.
Yeah,
Right.
gross.
Katie,
Yeah.
did I ever mention on this podcast about bad bosses that my former boss wanted me to completely maintain her dating app to the point where I yelled in her face one day, "Do you want me to fuck them too?"
Oh my
Because she was so pissed that I wanted her to answer any of the questions at all. Like, she insisted that I completely be her. She was like, I'm sure that other people's assistants do that, like, rich and famous people. And I'm like,
I don't think no.
No.
Yeah, they don't.
Wow.
I would not want that. No.
No. So she wanted you to do all the hard stuff and she would just go meet them?
I guess. Yeah. She wanted me to do all of the responding, the question answer. And I don't know if either one of you have ever done a dating app, but there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, it can be really intensive.
There's a lot of stuff. And she did not want to have any part in her own dating app. She wanted me to. And then when she met my son's now ex-girlfriend, she tried to get her to do it too.
Oh my gosh. That's nuts.
Anyway,
okay.
Back to you, Mike. I think your podcast sounds great.
I do too.
I think pop culture is so much fun. I listen to a few pop culture type podcasts myself.
Yeah. Well, we also know about the generation gap and how interesting that can be. And sometimes Ivy will make references to things that I'm like, hang on, let me Google that. And, but also I just love hearing really wildly different perspectives from everybody and kind of trying to see where everybody's coming from. So it's a good thing.
Nope. I love having the conversation and I love being able to discuss it and come to a place of understanding.
Yeah, for sure. Mike, why don't you tell the listeners how we all three met?
So I, in my voice journey, having had a couple of coaches, met a coach named Joe, who's fantastic. And he invited me to a networking group that he hosts on a monthly basis. And I met Katie at this monthly group. And she's been a fountain of information for me, which has been so helpful. And I'm super grateful to her because some of the perspectives and the knowledge that she shared, it didn't even occur to me at times to be thinking about some of these things. And we got to talking after one of these groups and she mentioned the podcast and here I am.
Great. Yeah. And Ivy was not there that day, but she's there normally. So yeah, it was our networking group. So folks, if you're out there trying to be a freelancer, please join a networking group. I've made some great friends there and obviously learned a lot. And it's been really rewarding to me to be able to help some beginners and stuff too. So I'm glad you found that helpful, Mike.
It was extremely helpful. And some of the on-screen work that I've done recently came as a direct result of that networking group.
That's so cool.
And it just, again, things start flowing and it starts going in different directions. And I love it. I love that snowball effect.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
That's the first networking group I've ever done, ever.
Yeah.
It took
it's
me,
the first
I
one
had to
I've
get out of
gone
my
to
comfort
consistently.
zone to go there.
For sure.
Talk to strangers.
Right? But I've made several friends and Corinne and I are bros now. We went to the Renaissance Fair last weekend and had a ball.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah.
Fun.
It's been just a great way to meet people. And it's so hard to meet people outside of college and everything. So, yeah, why not?
But hey, Mike, what are some of the jobs you've done? Because it seems like you've had a really wide variety of employment.
I have. And part of it is because I don't think I ever knew what I really wanted to do when I
Mhm.
first started out. And my first job was at the age of 11, and that was a paper route. So kids, ask your parents. And at 11 years old, I'm delivering, I think it was 230 newspapers across 2 neighborhoods. And at 11 years old, I was also tasked with going and collecting the money from all these people.
Yep.
And when I turned 13, my dad woke me up, said, "Get up, you're going to work." Took me to the gas station that he worked at as a kid. And I started pumping gas at the age of 13. And at
Wow.
14, they were teaching me how to drive the tow truck. Not that I was going to pick up cars.
Right.
Mhm.
And from there, I kind of went from job to job, supermarket, a political lobbyist group, which that was an interesting experience, a bakery where I worked with my best friend. And then one of my buddies, I was riding around with him one day, and he said, "I have to stop by the firehouse." And when I was at the firehouse, they got a call and they invited me to go with them. And that was a game changer for me.
Mm.
We got
Yeah.
back from that call and I looked at my buddy and I said, "Okay, how do I do this?"
Right.
And that's what started my journey in emergency services. So for a while, I worked on an ambulance. Then I was with a fire company. When I moved to California is funny. They don't like to recognize certifications from other states. So I had to start all over again.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm working a variety of different jobs. That's when that's where I got into loss prevention and safety and discovered that I had an innate knack to catch people stealing, whether it was
Nice.
straight shoplifting, organized crime, organized retail crime, that is, or
Wow.
even employees stealing. So I parlayed that into a very successful loss prevention career. In fact, I'm still in my industry considered a loss prevention, safety, and security expert.
Mhm.
Once I got all my certs back, I went to work for CAL FIRE. And if you've ever seen wildfires in California, that was the type of incidents that they mainly had. Now it's an all-purpose fire department. We responded to everything from medical aids to structure fire to you name it, really. And then my wife and I ran several businesses. And once I retired out of fire, I was a stay-at-home dad for a couple of years and then went back into the retail sector in loss prevention. And that's where I am today, although I'm not doing loss prevention anymore.
Yeah. Wow. That is so cool. And I really, I'm just so impressed with the badassery that's on your resume. I mean, thank you for your service and protecting people in all of
Absolutely.
those ways,
Thank you.
risking
You know
your
what's
actual
interesting
life.
is that dynamic actually hurt me in job interviews
Really?
because the interviewer would look at me and go, "So how come you're changing jobs every 3 or 4 years?"
Oh.
And
Okay.
if they're not, it's difficult to glean that understanding if you're not living it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's difficult to say, "Well, I'm doing this while I go to school at night for this so that I can do this."
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they want consistency, especially corporate America. And corporate America is a funny animal.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you're what they call a multi-passionate individual, which I can
Mhm.
relate to as well. It's
Me
just
too.
feeling like, why would I just do one thing when I want to learn everything and I want to, just try whatever comes my way. And I think that that's a beautiful thing and that employers should be looking for that more because what that shows to me is that you're adaptable and that you learn fast and you can problem solve very quickly. And so I think that all of those things are invaluable. And instead of
100%.
instead of just looking for someone that's done the same thing for 40 years, why not have someone that can do lots of different things?
I have lots
one of
of
the things-
fantasy jobs. I stay at jobs forever. I never quit jobs. I've worked where I work now for almost 20 years. I worked for that crazy bitch for 25. I've worked I stay at my jobs. But I have these, I'll drive by somewhere and be like, "Man, I'd like to work there." Or I'd like to do that. Or I've always had a fantasy based on the sitcom Alice of dropping everything and going somewhere and getting a job in a diner and
Mhm.
just waiting on tables and living in an apartment. And that's always been, that's my grandiose fantasy.
Go wait some tables and see
And
who
yet
you meet
here
in the
I
diner.
am staying where I always have been.
But, I think that we're taught to look for security. And I stayed in my toxic teaching job way longer than I should have because I had been conditioned to feel like I can't do anything else. Why would I let go of this tenured teaching position and take a risk? Right. And so I just accepted what I was given rather than going out and hunting for what I wanted.
But I love my current job.
Yes, you love the gym.
I love
no shade on the gym.
No, I love the gym. And I loved when I worked in retail too.
Yeah.
It was
That's
fun.
rare.
Retail can be fantastic. And one of the things I used to say a lot is retail would be great if it wasn't for the customers. And that's
exactly.
That's only because of some of the unreasonable expectations that people come in with sometimes. And it's not everybody. A majority of people are fantastic.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's those, for lack of a better way to put it, it's those Karens that come in and here they go. They're popping off at me like I'm the source of their problem.
Right.
And I'm actually trying to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. They just go on the defensive. Well, that brings me back to the question I was going to ask you, which was how do you pick up on the vibe of someone that's going to steal something? Do you just have a spider sense? Or is it intuition? You can just kind of feel it out.
So part of it is absolutely intuition. I'm very good at picking up on and reading people's energies. Mm. And sometimes when I would walk past somebody because I was plain clothes on the floor, doing my thing. Sometimes I would walk past somebody and just the vibe energy-wise that I would pick up off of them is I'm not sure what they're doing, but they are absolutely up to no good.
Yeah.
So then I start watching, and the other side of that is behavior. It is all behavior based. Shoplifters, people that are stealing, they don't look a certain way. They're not a certain race. They're not a certain, they're none of that. Mm-hmm. The only thing that they have in common is that they all want something for nothing. That is the only thing they have in common. Behavior tells us everything else we need to know. Oh, it's the middle of July. It's 95 degrees out. You're wearing a trench coat. I'm going to say that's suspicious.
Cool.
Okay. Unless it's a long black leather trench coat, because that's just punk, okay?
Fair. Or if you're role-playing Matrix, hey, I get it. It's total, no judgment. So other things, random rapid selection of products with no thought to size if it's clothing or price if it's something high end. So I'll give you a great example. I saw a guy come in, he has a shopping cart. He comes into the building I was working at the time. He walks over to the Chromebook display and he selects 12 Chromebooks and puts them all in a shopping cart. This is not normal behavior. So now we're going to look to see what is he going to do with these 12 Chromebooks. And he tried to run out an emergency exit with them. So it's all behavior based. Let's see, another good one is avoiding employees, avoiding other customers. Because these people don't want to be seen. They don't want to be noticed. They want to get in, steal whatever it is they're going to take, and get right back out.
Yeah.
And that's where the real challenge comes, because I'm not going to stand there at the door to a retail establishment and get into a knockdown, drag out fight with somebody who's trying to steal 4 pair of jeans or whatever.
Yeah.
You also have to read the room, because I've had managers, and here's where we're going to get into some of the toxicity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had managers who want to prosecute everybody no matter what. And there's a time to prosecute and there's a time to not prosecute. Mm-hmm. We need to read the room here sometimes. Mm-hmm. If I have a guy that comes in to steal 12 Chromebooks, we're going to prosecute you because you're absolutely going to resell and all the things. If I've got a mom who tells me I had to take these jackets because my kids are cold, we need to look at that a little differently.
Right.
And I always believed in that, and I always operated from that perspective. I had one manager, he prosecuted a woman for stealing $1.98 in candy bars.
I thought there was a dollar amount that had to be, I thought they couldn't prosecute for below a certain dollar amount.
So you can call the police on any type of theft. There's a
Okay.
difference between misdemeanor theft and then
okay, yeah.
felony theft.
Mhm.
And then there's also the law enforcement side of it where the police may come in and go, we're not going to prosecute this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'll trespass them out of your store. We'll tell them not to come back, but we're not going to prosecute this. Now,
Mhm.
that particular case was all the way back in 1996.
Mhm.
And it was a different world in 1996 than it is today.
Right.
It was also in the inner city. It was a high drug area. And this particular manager was getting ripped off every day. So he
Yeah.
was at his breaking point
Mhm.
with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's simply a different way to go about that. And that is to be more proactive. So you're not in a position where you're trying to subdue somebody for $1.98 in candy bars or trying
That's
to prosecute them.
crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was a manager of a ladies' shoe store in the very early 90s, like 91, 92. And my district manager, I was the manager of the store, but my district manager told me, if anyone ever comes in and tries to rob you, I want you to offer to carry the cash register out to the car for them. Like, you are more valuable than what they've come to steal. That was
Right.
his motto was, you stay safe. They take whatever they want. You
Mhm.
don't get hurt.
That is a good manager because
Mhm.
nothing in that store is worth the safety of anyone in that
Yep,
store.
that's what he always
Employees,
said.
customer, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. I myself, later on in my career, it was a few years after 96. This was 1998. Myself, the night manager, the head cashier, and the closing manager were all taken hostage in a takeover robbery at gunpoint.
What kind of establishment was that?
This was a retail establishment.
Wow.
This was think like a Target or a Walmart or a
Okay.
Kmart.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
By the way, the comments and statements made by Mike are not reflective of any retail organization and are not representative of any retail
Right.
organization.
You've worked so many places. Nobody could pin that down anyway.
Mhm.
So this person, he took the closing manager and the head cashier hostage at gunpoint into the vault. I did not know this was happening, and I entered the office because I was wondering where they went.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she had not given us the proper code when she got back there. So I went back to see what was going on. Well, when I walked in, he pointed the gun at me, brought me in, empties out the entire safe. Long story short, when he had me empty the safe, one of the things I put in with all the money he was taking was a tracking device because I knew where it was in the safe. That was part of my job. So I made sure that went in there. And then he leaves the building. Interestingly enough, he had everybody go into a bathroom and telling everybody to lay down on the floor. When he told me to lay down on the floor, I told him no. And he looked at me and I said, if you're going to shoot me, you're going to shoot me standing up. I am not laying down on the floor in this bathroom. It's not happening.
My God.
So we went out. He had me help him carry this money out of the building in the shopping cart and told me to go back inside. When I got back inside to shut the door, I knew it locked from the inside. So I was able to run to a phone.
Mhm.
At that point, the other managers were tripping every alarm we had.
Yeah.
And they caught this guy. Turned out he was responsible for more than, I think it was 25 takeover robberies in 2 different counties.
Jeez.
And he was going to go to jail for a long time. Here's where here we're going to talk about a toxic boss. One of the other managers, a couple days later, pulls me into the office and says, we need to write you up. And I said, for what? And he said, well, you didn't follow policy that night, so we're going to have to write you up and we're likely going to suspend you.
What the hell?
What
And
was
I
the
said-
policy?
The policy was I was supposed to wait for the proper code to be called. And because I didn't wait, or because I didn't hear the proper code called and I walked into the office, I broke policy and they wanted to write me up for it.
You were
Oh.
checking to make sure. Oh my God. You were James
So-
Bond in that situation, Mike. I don't
This
want to
is
hear
why
that
I-
from any manager. That's bullshit.
This is why I don't work where there's policies.
That's right. I make the policy.
Or I am the policy.
Oh my God.
Well, I called my regional manager because one of the things that I had to do when I came back to work was I had to go through a psychological evaluation to determine whether or not there was PTSD.
Yeah.
How was I
fair enough.
doing?
Yeah.
And it was funny because the psychologist looked at me and goes, you're built differently because you're fine. You can go. You're all good. But I called my regional manager and I explained, hey, they're going to write me up. And I don't think that's very fair. And my regional manager actually went off the rails and said, if he tries to write you up, we're going to fire him. Don't even pay attention to what he's saying.
Good.
So there's always going to be a manager or a supervisor when it comes to a toxic boss that is going to try to assert their power in a negative way. And a lot of the time it's ego driven.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about them asserting their power. And I have learned from being in a supervisory position. At one point, I was a regional loss prevention manager, and I had 37 stores under my belt that I was in charge of. And my number one focus was training everyone, the people that I worked directly with and the people I didn't work directly with. This is how we're going to do this so that we're all on the same page. We're all going to be safe. And we're all going to go home at night, because none of this stuff that is getting stolen or that's caused or being taken out of the building, none of this is worth fighting for or fighting over or anything like that.
Absolutely.
And you never know what some of these people are carrying.
Right.
I mean, we once took 2 juvenile kids. One was a 14-year-old kid, and when we were detaining them, the kid looked at me and says, "You need to know I have a gun." This is a 14-year-old kid.
Gosh.
And there's no way he should have had a gun. I'm glad he told me about it because we weren't armed. But we took that gun off of him and 100 rounds of ammunition off his buddy.
My gosh.
So my goal was always for everyone to be safe.
Yeah.
And you still get those managers who's, I don't care what's going on. I want you to stop them. Back in the day, we would go hands-on. So we had to carry handcuffs, and we would end up fighting with some of these people or, whatever it looked like. And I had one guy try to stab me with a screwdriver. My partner tackled him before he could. And at that point, I started reassessing, how important is this job to me?
Yeah.
Right.
I might as well
No
go be a
kidding.
police officer
Yeah.
if I'm going to do this.
Right.
And eventually what happened, because of liability, all these stores and all these companies and businesses now have a strict hands-off policy.
Yeah. When did that start to change? Did you notice?
I noticed that started to change in the early 2000s, and it started to change because we started seeing serious incidents where people died or were seriously injured during the course of an arrest or a detention. And some of the people that were getting killed or injured had nothing to do with what was going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like somebody runs out of a building, they dive into a car takes off through a busy mall parking lot and hits a family of 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know personally, I had one instance where they got in a foot chase with somebody they tried to stop. The agents were chasing this person. It was a younger female, and she ran out in the road and immediately was struck and killed by a vehicle. So now this person has the worst outcome. The person chasing them is now devastated because nobody wanted that.
Right.
Yeah.
So when these types of incidents started happening, the companies had to reassess, how are we dealing with loss when it comes to external theft, and where is the value? Because if a company gets sued for $5 million, well, all of a sudden that $400 stereo or speaker that they were stealing, it's not worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not worth it. And it
Yeah.
never was.
No.
It's just stuff at the end of the day.
Yes.
I was going to ask the same question that Katie asked about when that started, because I was at a drugstore once when my kids were very small, so it would have been the early 2000s, and I was at the checkout counter, and there's a woman who still lives in my neighborhood, only she's really turned her life around since this happened, but she was shopping with her children, filled the cart with random things. She was in there the whole time I was there. Just walked out of the store, pushed the cart out of the store. Just And I said to the cashier, I was like, we both just looked at her and then we just looked at each other and I was like, what do you do when that happens? And he said, happens all the time. We're not allowed to do anything.
Well, it's
And
smarter
so
to not, as it turns out.
The people I was dealing with, particularly when I was still in Southern California, because in California they passed Proposition 47, which decriminalized minor crimes, or what they considered minor crimes, such as simple possession of all drugs and petty theft. So now you could steal up to $950 worth of merchandise, and it's considered a misdemeanor crime. So here's your ticket. Have a nice day. Nobody's going to jail for that. The suspects knew that, and they also knew we're not allowed to touch them.
So they got their
So I
little
had a guy that
calculator.
was coming in.
Get up to
they would go
$950.
right to $900. They would literally go right to $900, but then they would come back the next day and do the same thing. And this was every day they're coming in and doing this.
Yeah.
I had one guy, actually, he knew me, I knew him. And he goes, Mike, you got your job and I got mine. And I looked and I go, it's not a job, man. You're stealing from everybody. And they knew that and they used it to their advantage. That was why you started seeing like Walgreens, Walmart, Target, they start locking everything up.
Yeah.
And then the battle cry became, well, this is now racist because you're locking up these specific products. Well, it's not racist because the products being stolen were what was desired in the community. I mean, I've stopped people that had shopping lists that they were given. They would just go around, what do you want? They'd make their list, and then they would come in and steal all those products. So the retailers can't grab the person. You don't want to touch them because you don't want to get sued. But you're also losing your entire inventory on specific items. So what do? Let's lock them up. And then that gets distorted into something it's not. It's simply a business trying to survive that wave of theft. And they always move on to something else. Sometimes it was baby formula. Other times it was clothing. Sometimes it was stereo.
The razors are locked up at my grocery store.
Yeah.
Razors is a big one. Razors is a huge one because all of this, the profit margin's huge, right? So it's 100% profit. If I come in and I steal $500 worth of razors, I could sell them online for $200, but it doesn't matter to me because it's all 100% profit.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the real problem then, because you're saying these are the desired items in those neighborhoods, it's probably more of a systemic issue that's just in a poverty-stricken environment that, is not the business's problem, really, to solve. But they've got to survive and they got to do what they've got to do. So really, the problem is not like inherently racist as I see it. It's just that this is the situation and it needs to be addressed in a different way.
I can't even think of any products that are locked up that are race specific.
True. And I read a whole article about this. I didn't work for this retailer, but this retailer was taking a lot of heat because it was specific hair care products. And that was why they were saying you're targeting this group because of these hair care products. And I can understand that perspective. I can understand why you could look at that or I could look at that and go, okay, yeah, absolutely. This is a marginalized community and this is what's happening. And there's still a desire. But when I look at the big picture and I look at the overall picture, do you ever wonder why there's a liquor store and a gun store or a pawn shop in the inner city everywhere, but when you go into a rich neighborhood, those things don't exist? There's a method to some of this madness.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, Mike, what would you say is the biggest red flag that you've seen in a toxic boss or a work environment? That's like something that kind of tips you off, like this guy's a dick.
Oh man, there's so many. I think some of the biggest ones though are the ones that are constantly patting themselves on the back for the work that the people underneath them are doing.
Amen.
Yep.
And taking credit for that work when they're not really doing that work or they haven't done that work. That's a big one for me. Any supervisor, manager, or anyone that's higher on the food chain than me that does not put emphasis on training and cultivating their employees, that is a huge red flag.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any manager or supervisor that uses discipline to control someone through fear, that is a huge red flag. And I'm seeing that firsthand right now because all I'm hearing is people are afraid to go to work because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble.
Yes.
When you say discipline, because I have never worked, well, not never, but when I have not worked as an adult in a corporate atmosphere. The last corporate thing I did was the mall, and it was my store. Corporate only visited, every so often. What is discipline? Is it just writing up? What are the forms of discipline that they use?
So it can be as simple as a verbal, where you just have a notation that we had a verbal conversation about this. You know that this isn't the way it's supposed to go, and you're not going to do this again.
Okay.
When I say discipline, I mean over-the-top discipline. And I'll give you a great example of that. Somebody comes into work and they clock in, time clock malfunctions, doesn't record their clock accurately. Okay. So they write in the exception log, which is now they're writing down their times. They write down a time and it's off by 1 minute. They are then brought in, accused of falsification of a company document, suspended for 3 days, and demoted from their position.
Oh my God. I just got all red, with anger of that not even real scenario. Wow.
I mean, it honestly sounds like some stuff that happened when I was teaching. Like, they were that nitpicky about stupid shit, and it was just, disrespectful to the employees at that point. Like, treat me like a person. I can make a mistake. Your machine can make a mistake. And we talked about the nurse that got brought up on criminal charges, right? Have you heard what we said about her, Mike?
Absolutely, especially because the medication that was dispensed to her was not dispensed in the proper form. There was a generic system that spit out this type of medicine when she meant something else. So there is an error with the actual system here, and you know that the intention isn't there. If the intention is there, I'm all for discipline.
Absolutely.
If we know,
yes.
Okay, this person did, yes, we have to have discipline. If you have a solid employee and they make an honest mistake and they are disciplined over the top in a manner such as that, now we've destroyed morale.
Absolutely.
We've destroyed drive. Why is that person going to work for anybody? Because now they're in fight or flight. They're just trying to survive their workday. And it translates to other things. People develop problems with alcohol. People develop psychological impacts. Sometimes it comes home with them. I would come home at times when I would be in a toxic work environment, and I would just start vomiting words onto my wife. And she's like, okay, great, you're home.
Give me a hug first. Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
And getting out of that situation, it immediately turns a corner, and now coming in, hugging the wife.
Yeah.
Not even talking about work because there's no need to. There's no need to go down that rabbit hole of fuckery, for lack of a better way to put it.
There is no better way to put it.
But these are the types of managers that are now, they are really using fear to control people like this. And it just, I don't like it because we're not cultivating our next generation of employees. We're not propelling ourselves together forward as an organization. We're simply making metric numbers on a piece of paper somewhere.
Yes.
And that's toxic as hell.
Yes. You said it. That's a really good explanation. I appreciate that.
Yes. You said your least toxic job was the grave digger job, and I've been sitting here just I want to talk about the grave digging. What did you like about that? Was it just because everyone you dealt with was dead?
Well, I mean, first of all, you're always going to have a job.
Yeah.
That's always going to be a thing. I mean, people are just dying to get in there. So that's bad grave digger joke for you.
Har.
So I lucked into this position, or I fell into this position. I had been working with a landscaper, and I don't even remember how I ended up working for this graveyard. It was for a Presbyterian church in my hometown, and they needed landscapers. And part of the job of landscaping is you're going to dig graves. And I learned a lot about the burial process. So, yes, you're buried 6 feet underground, but the hole is actually 8 feet because where we were at, you have to have a concrete crypt, and then the coffin goes in the crypt, and a lid goes on the coffin, or a lid goes on the crypt, excuse me, a concrete lid, and then you fill the hole.
So you also poured concrete?
It was preformed.
Oh, okay.
So imagine like a concrete sarcophagus goes down in, then the coffin gets lowered into that, and then we put the concrete lid on it, and then we bury fill in the dirt. We use it's kind of like a jackhammer to tamp the dirt down, and then we go away for 2 days because you have to allow the dirt time to settle. If you just put the sod in, a couple days later, that dirt's going to settle, and the sod's going to be 6 inches lower than the rest of the dirt.
Oh.
Yeah.
What I loved about the job is it was quiet. It was serene. If we weren't doing an actual funeral or burial, we were cutting grass. We were trimming stones. We were taking care of the grounds. There was wildlife, the birds, deer would come through. It was peaceful. Nobody yelled at me. Yeah. Nobody screamed at me. The only thing, and this is kind of a funny little, when I first got hired, one of the things we had to do is we used a backhoe, which is a tractor, to dig that deep hole. But then one of us would have to jump down into the hole and use a spade to square the hole up.
Okay.
So the first time we're digging, it's my first grave we're doing, okay, and the guys are going, all right, Mikey, get in the hole. I go, okay. So I jump down in the hole. I'm all excited. I'm doing the job. I square it up. Does this look good, boss? Yeah, that's great, Mikey. I go, okay, help me get out. Nope. They said, you got in there, you figure out how to get out.
What? That's hazing.
That is hazing.
A little bit. And I did figure it out. It took me a few minutes. And what I ended up doing was you had to take the spade and put it across the corner of the grave up top.
Okay.
And then use that to pull yourself up and out.
That's smart.
But wait a second. You're not tall enough for your arms when you go. Are you tall enough for 8 feet to put or did you jump into the cement crypt?
So I have always been vertically challenged. I like to say that I'm
Way
fun
to call him
sized.
out, Ivy.
No, I don't even know how tall he is. I just know that nobody is 8 feet tall with their arms up in the air. I don't even think my little
husband
brother
could do it without even stretching on his
My little brother
tiptoes.
is 6'11", and I don't even know if he could reach up 8 feet.
Oh, he'd have that easily.
Yeah, he could jump
So
out.
for me, because I was slightly vertically challenged, I had to do one of two things. I had to either get a good running start to plant the shovel first, and then get a second running start to get up and grab the shovel, or I would dig footholds.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
I would dig a little foothold because then I could just stick my foot in there, hop up,
Yeah.
That works
put the
too.
shovel up, and now I'm there. Part of that, though, is, I like to look at that and go, you know what? That's a life-saving lesson, because if I
Yes,
ever
it
fall
is.
into a deep hole, I know how to get out.
As long as you have a spade.
As long as I have a spade.
Well, you could still, listen, if I'm trying to survive, I'm not giving up till I get out, right? I'll use my elbow. I'll dig a hole with whatever I got.
Right.
That is impressive and very helpful advice for anyone that falls into a grave accidentally. So thank you.
There you go. But I enjoyed that job a great deal. They were very supportive of my role with the local volunteer fire company. So that cemetery was literally 3 minutes from my firehouse. So if we got a call, they would immediately say, Mike, go, because you're right here, go.
Yeah.
So that we would be able to put a truck out and respond to whatever the emergency was. So they were real supportive of that. I think I was like 18, 19 when I had that job. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, sounds cool.
All right, so transitioning a little bit here. So what was the journey that brought you into acting and voice acting specifically, Mike?
I just wanted to do something completely different, right? And my wife found a voiceover class, and she took it and thought it was the greatest thing ever. She's like, and not for her, for me.
Okay.
I'm always walking around quoting movies, acting out scenes, doing voices, all the things. And she brought this to me and said, I think this is a great fit for you. I think you would really excel at it. And I went ahead and took that course. And it was a good learning process, but it wasn't a great outcome because the demo they gave me was not very good.
Oh.
And I ended up getting connected with my current coach, Joe.
Yeah.
And he listened to the demo and he said, okay, I'm glad they gave you a demo. We're going to give you a better one. And he has taught me so much more about it. And the thing that I'm embracing now is I have fun with this. I enjoy it. I don't mind sitting in my little space, recording my stuff
Right.
or doing audition after audition after audition. And I know that once I start getting work, that's going to snowball again. And here we go. And then the on-camera stuff, that I've enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would. The podcast, I'm looking forward to that because the person I'm going to co-host with me, we enjoy each other's company so much. And we banner off each other so well that I think it's going to be very entertaining for people.
Yeah.
And then finally, this has opened the door for me to really stretch myself and do a little bit of writing and do a little bit of improv / stand-up.
Oh,
Fun. I just
fun.
like making people laugh. I want to have a good time.
Yeah.
So the whole goal, and this was the goal from day one, to get away from a traditional W-2, to be able to work from home, work for myself. My whole studio fits in a backpack, so let's go to Mexico. I'll record down there. It's all good. And be able to support my family and do the things I want when I want.
Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds a little
Total
like
freedom.
my story.
Well, I listened to your story, and that lady was batshit crazy.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a lot more to it after 25 years. But, if you're in a toxic situation, the only thing you can do is try everything you can to leave it, and I have a similar story to you, only the snowball part doesn't happen for me. I've gotten 2 audiobooks but I love doing this podcast. I love it. I think it's so much fun. I can't wait till it actually makes money.
We're close.
And that shows, and that's a beautiful thing. One of the things that I have learned is that I am no longer giving away my power.
Exactly.
So we talk about, okay, they're going to use discipline as a fear tool. Well, if I go in and I do my job and I don't give them ammunition, they have no power over me. And because of that, when I go in now, they hold no power over me.
Yep.
And the people that come in as customers are all saying the same thing. We love talking to you. You're fun. Because I practice my voiceover stuff at work now. I talk to people in accents. I do characters.
It's hard to turn it off.
Right. It's hard to turn it off. So it's been a burden that came off of me because I don't give away my power and I don't allow that aspect to affect me. And also it feels very temporary now because other things are starting to happen.
Yeah. Well, you have to get to that point. I mean, I know I did. You have to get to the point where you decide for yourself that this job is not even a quarter of what my life is. They say all the time, you hear all the time now on social media, your job will replace you. I gave my old boss way too much power for way too long. And once I decided that she had no power over me, it was much, much better. Now, it doesn't mean that she didn't make my blood boil still. It doesn't mean that, like you talked about, Mike coming home and your wife had to hear about it.
And that was a real thing. And my wife and I had a conversation about that. And that really drove home a couple of things around how this was affecting me. And then I really started looking at other things and realized, wow, and I'm just going to be completely honest and transparent. I'm drinking a lot. I'm drinking every night.
Yeah.
And I'm not drinking because we're out with friends.
Right.
My wife goes to bed and I'm sitting here drinking, binge watching Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And that's not a good environment.
Nope.
So now I want to change. I want to shift the landscape here. And fortunately, I had a lot of tools in my toolbox. I did a lot of personal development work on myself. And I actually did some therapy around this as well.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, okay, how am I going to show up a little bit differently here? And one of the things that I realized that I had forgotten was that I have power over how I respond to any situation and anyone. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter what they do. So they write me up and suspend. Doesn't matter. What matters is how I respond to it.
Yep.
And I'm at choice. I can choose to freak out, curse them out, rage quit, whatever it is. It's not going to serve me in the long run.
Right.
In fact, it's going to hurt me in the long run.
Yes.
Now, because I'm going to choose how I respond to them, hey, how we doing? It's fine. It's all fine. There's no power that you have over me.
Yep.
And as long as I'm doing my job responsibilities, and I do them well, because I was always taught, my parents taught me, you do the best job you possibly can, no matter what it is, no matter how menial it might be, no matter how shitty it might be, or no matter how great it might be. You do the best job, period.
Right.
You earn that. And that's what I do with everything. So without that power over me, now you just leave me alone.
Yeah.
It sounds like you took back your power, just like I did.
Let them move on to easier prey. And I think there's an important distinction with you were saying, like, instead of having that emotional outburst or letting it get to you and letting them take that power away, you know, that's different than like just repressing your emotions and locking it up, you know. Choosing to react in a different way and taking control through mindfulness is what you're talking about, I think, as opposed to just like, I can't get emotional because, you know, that's going to be seen as weak or whatever.
It's more, that's absolutely accurate. And it's also stop being reactionary.
Yeah.
Stop being emotional. Neither one of those things is going to lead to a good result for me in the long run. So I have learned, and I do it in the moment now. I will catch myself in that moment, ramping up and getting ready to go. And then I go, okay, take a step back.
Yep.
Clean that off, throw it over my shoulders. Now we're going to go forward, and we're going to go forward in a way that's going to serve me, not hurt me.
Yes. Very well put.
So
excellent.
I encourage anybody who's in a toxic work environment to really have that self-assessment, take a look at what's working for you as far as maintaining your own emotional and mental well-being, and do the things that work for you.
Yeah.
That is a possibility. There's a lot of toxic stuff out there, and it all depends on how I respond to it, how bad that can be for me.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes. Well, tell us what you were going to say about the triangle shirtwaist, and we'll just cut it in wherever it will fit.
So you would think that we would have learned from something that may have happened prior to that. In 1903, 602 people were killed in a theater fire in Chicago because the owners of that theater bricked up exits, put drapes over exits, and had iron gates so that people couldn't access seats that they didn't pay for. So that was in 1903. And then you had Triangle Waste Factory fire, which was the worst industrial incident because that involved the workers and the mistreatment of the workers, most of which were female. I loved your whole podcast on that. And then we flash forward to November 28th, 1942, the Coconut Grove nightclub in Boston, Massachusetts. 492 people killed because the owners locked exit doors. They used chains to lock some of the exit doors so people couldn't sneak in or leave without paying. And that was also fueled in part by flammable materials they should not have used in building.
Yeah.
And also they replaced Freon with a different chemical that was extremely flammable because of the war, because there was a shortage of Freon. And because of that, these 492 people died. The guy only served 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
So there's this history of that.
492, Mike?
492 people were killed.
Good grief.
Now, and they still, to this day, there are varying reports on how that fire started. One of the working theories was that a soldier had unscrewed a light bulb because he wanted to make out with his girl in the corner.
I feel like I've heard that story. Maybe it wasn't
And
about
a
that.
busboy was instructed to screw that light bulb in, and he couldn't see it, so he lit a match.
Mm.
After he walked away, within seconds, people reported flames, and because of the design of the club, the flammable materials, I believe what they call a flashover occurred, which is where the fire just rolls through the building. Coconut Grove is actually why, if you've ever been to a hotel or a very nice building that has a revolving door in the front, there are push doors on either side of that, because the Coconut Grove fire had a revolving door, but no push doors. People jammed that door and rendered it impossible to get out. So the firefighters that were responding were literally unstacking bodies to try to get that door open.
Oh my God.
So that caused massive changes to the fire code.
Yeah.
And people don't know some of this history in our country. As a fireman, we talked about these incidents
Yeah, I bet.
in the fire academy and in tailgate meetings, because you want to be better for every job. You want to be able to anticipate what you might encounter. And even so, you still had in Rhode Island a few years ago, Great White concert in a little bar. They set off pyrotechnics and people bottlenecked at the front door, because human nature is to exit a building the same way you went in.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why, like, when my wife and I go out, I'm always looking at different emergency exits.
Yeah.
Especially because you don't know. It could be a fire. It could be a shooter these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no telling what that could be.
You just have to be vigilant and aware of your surroundings and don't get that tunnel vision.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was totally unaware of an incident like that, and of course connected with that a lot as like a woman who's been working my whole life and just feeling like, yeah, I would have taken a job like that. And you know, we just expect to
Yeah.
be safe in our workplaces, and unfortunately, we're not always. And it sometimes takes a tragedy for us to learn that.
100%.
Yeah.
When it comes to workplace violence, some things have changed. Particularly, I would say in the past 5 to 8 years, it's gotten much more confrontational.
Right.
People have gotten much more confrontational over a variety of different things. And I understand people feel passionate about things. At your job, in a retail environment, out in public, is not where you want to have an argument about some of these things. And I say argument instead of discussion, because most of the times these are arguments. It is one person that is trying to impose their thoughts on somebody else, whether it's politics or whatever it might be. And that becomes a volatile thing. So like back in 2016, workplace violence, I had 2 people start fist fighting in the middle of my store over politics.
Employees?
It was actually customers,
Okay.
but I was standing by and one of the managers looked at me and said, "Aren't you going to break that up?" And I said, "No, I called the police.
Right.
They can break that up.
Right.
The second I jump in here, either I'm going to get hurt, they're going to get hurt, and no matter what, they're going to sue us."
Yeah.
So we're not doing that. The other thing is the people that are either carrying guns legally or carrying guns illegally or weapons. So like when I worked in California, you can't really carry a gun. It's a lot of hoops to jump through to get a concealed carry permit. But what you could carry is you could carry any size knife in a scabbard. As long as it was in a scabbard, it was legal.
What is that?
Huh. It's the
So, like,
covering,
think-
that, like the
okay.
case.
So think Sons of Anarchy. If you've ever watched that show, they all carry, it's about a motorcycle gang. They all carried blades that were up to 18 inches long, and they were in scabbards on it. So I had people walking in with these ginormous knives, and just for some people to see that is very unsettling.
Right.
Perfectly
I mean,
legal.
I read this and I don't even know what workplace violence is. And so if I saw that, I don't even, this is like foreign to me.
So that's one example, because to me, that is workplace violence. If somebody has a weapon and another person is uncomfortable, that can be construed as a form of violence or a threat.
Yeah.
Then you take the Second Amendment people, love them. I exercise my Second Amendment rights, but I exercise them in a responsible way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to carry a rifle when I'm out in public. I don't need to open carry in public,
Mm-hmm.
but people do that. I've also seen them where they draw down. In the most egregious case that I saw, it was a company I was working for, and it was an adult special needs person bumped into an off-duty police officer who was carrying his young daughter, and the officer was shoved to the ground, at which point he drew his off-duty weapon and he got off 6 rounds. He killed the special needs person,
Oh my God.
wounded the father, and wounded the mother. The rest of the people thought that there was an active shooter, and in the ensuing stampede, multiple other people were injured. That is something that was so foreign to me to happen at work, that now how do you respond to that? So I ended up taking a class on how to respond to active shooter. Now, my fire training gave me all the first aid and medical I needed to respond to medical needs. Active shooter training and what to do at your workplace for an active shooter, you have 3 options. Run and evacuate is your first one. If you are unable to do that, hide and secure the room you're in. If you are unable to do that, fight. And when it says fight, even in the training I received, it is a fight to the death, and you must treat it that way. Because this person is in here, they're already killing people. They do not care about you. So training young people, 18-year-old kids, this is your first job. And hey, part of your training, we're going to talk about active shooters. And their eyes get big as pie plates because what do you mean active shooter?
Yeah.
This is a grocery store, or this is a clothing store, or this is whatever. So that is something that has dramatically changed from when I was in my 20s. I mean, when I was in my 20s, guys would fist fight, but that was it.
Yeah.
Now you can't see any type of altercation where somebody's not pulling out a firearm of some kind and shooting or what have you.
Yeah.
And this doesn't even cover some of the other workplace violence that I've seen towards women and children.
Right.
And some of this stuff is absolutely disgusting. I mean, I did sexual harassment and harassment training at one point, and the amount, this goes back to what we were talking about, with some of the dating sites, the behavior that, and I hate to say this, but the behavior that some men exhibit is just appalling to me.
Yeah.
And what they think is okay. I had one instance where it was an older gentleman, and when I say older, he was senior age. He sent a love letter to one of my employees with a picture of him when he was 20.
Okay.
Which is okay, as if that's not bad enough.
I mean,
He
that's
would
weird
then
and
come-
awkward, but
Oh, it's awkward turtle all day long. As if that wasn't bad enough, he would then come in once a week and stand directly across from where the counter she worked at and just stare at her.
okay. That's
To the point where she went to a manager in tears. She's like, look, I can't. I can't. And rightfully, thank you for coming to us.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with this guy saying, hey, you can't do that. It's inappropriate. Is this your wife? Yes. She walked away. So I think the wife not only knew, but I think she was like, I'm glad he's not paying attention to me.
Oh my gosh.
But I said, you can't talk to this young lady. You can't stare at her. You need to give her a wide berth, or we're going to go a different way with this. He goes, okay, I'll go tell her I'm sorry.
No.
I go, did you not hear anything
No,
I
she
just
doesn't want to
said
talk to you, bro. Oh my God.
No, you're not going to do that. But these are things that happen every day. These are things that happen between coworkers. I can't tell you the amount of unwanted advances from coworkers. No means no, right? Shoot your shot, like you said, but use some common sense, have some etiquette, and have respect for people in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to be a decent human being. Just be a decent human being.
Yeah.
But this
really
is
not that hard.
is happening all over the place.
Yeah. We've had situations like that in school, and I don't want to go into specifics because it involved some, people other than me. But we had some harassment situations in schools where I worked and in other schools, and I believed that not enough was done about it. So that was one thing that made me feel a little bit unsafe. And it needs to be treated with sensitivity for sure, but also the perspective of like, you get one warning max, and after that, like, we need to go a different way because the warnings aren't working.
100%. And to have these conversations, again, this was something 20 years ago. Either it wasn't in the forefront, it was going unreported, or it just wasn't occurring on the level that it is now. And I think it's more the latter, because I think that we have failed a little bit in educating the younger generations around proper etiquette, how to behave. I know I was raised, my dad, my granddad, they taught me, you respect a woman, doesn't matter who she is, 1,000,000%. You hold that door for her. You walk her to the front door. If you go on a date, you walk her back to the front door and make sure she gets in. All these things that are considered chivalrous. That was second nature to me. That's what I was taught. And I don't see any of that. And I'm sorry, but guys, let's just be real. Unless it's requested, please don't send a dick pic. It's not a good look ever.
Never.
Ever. Ever. It just boggles my mind. And I have three daughters. So when they were in high school, I was seeing some of this. Like, I came home from work one day and all the kids were over, because that's our house was the house all the kids congregated at. And all the girls were in the kitchen. And I walked in and it's Mikey. Oh, hey. Everybody's hugging. Okay, great. I look into my living room. There's 5 boys sitting on my couch watching my TV that haven't even turned around. So I looked at my wife and I went, watch this. This is going to be good. And I walked into the living room. I grabbed the remote. I turned the TV off. I said, gentlemen, get on your feet now. And they all looked at me and they stood up. I said, who are you? And we went around and I made them shake my hand and introduce themselves. And I said, here's the deal, guys. When the man of the house or the woman of the house walks in, you stand up, you look them in the eye, you greet them, you shake their hand, maybe a hug if appropriate and welcome, but you acknowledge them. Every single time after that, when they would walk in the front door, Mike, we're here. Hey, Mike, how you doing? To the point where my wife would go, he's at work. You're safe. It's okay. But they didn't know what they didn't know.
That's right.
I think there's a lot of the older men, though, too, that I don't know that I think it's that generational. I think some men in general are just Neanderthals. But there's also, like, did you listen to our feminism episode? It's okay if you didn't, because no one did.
I did. I actually did.
In that episode, I told Katie about when I was informed by multiple people that men now need consent from a woman to open a door for them.
Untrue.
And I was like, I don't like that. Well, I know it's untrue, but I think there's a lot of men who feel unsafe to do those things now. But also, there's a guy around the corner that pulled up next to me in his truck, grown-ass man, probably late 40s, rolled his window down and asked me, did I have a boyfriend while I was walking my dog? And I'm like, did your mom tell you that was how you meet girls? Like,
right.
Again,
People don't know how to socially interact. I think that we need to break it down to that point and explain to them. Yeah.
People, it's almost like they don't know how to talk to each other anymore.
Yeah.
no, they just know how
The
to
other
type.
thing, the other thing that, and this bothers me on a profound level, is the Neanderthal attitude that is still out there.
Yeah.
And how some men, not all men, I am not generalizing all men, but there are some men out there that they still treat women terribly. And one of the things that I see a lot of right now, and I have for a couple years, is if there is a dispute, they'll be yelling at the female manager, yelling at them, finger in the face, you're going to, whatever they're saying. And then I'll step into that conversation to go, excuse me, sir, I'm going to be helping you now. How can, well, let me tell you about what's going on. And immediately I look at them and go, hang on, aren't you going to yell at me the way you were yelling at her?
Right.
Katie and I had that conversation too. It's easier to mistreat women.
Yeah.
It
Because
doesn't
we
make
are
any
brought up,
sense.
we're brought up to smile and nod,
Uh-huh.
you know, because we are, you know, threatened when someone's yelling at us. And we just feel like we have to sit there and take it a lot of times. And, you know, the choice is either sit there and take it or yell back. And neither one of those is great.
Mhm.
So, and it can be really difficult as a woman in a leadership role to show your authority in a respectful way and communicate effectively without like escalating, because it's just, you feel threatened. And so your natural inclination is to put your walls up and, you know, just get through it.
100%. And a lot of these, the guys that are going to yell at a woman in that situation, but then they're not going to yell at the man. I think part of that is, and I'll just break it down into real simple terms. That's a bully, because they're yelling at somebody that they think they can get away with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And when another man steps in, now they're not 100% sure if they can get away with it. So they're going to feel it out before they go down that road.
Yeah. I mean, that's just misogyny. Like, really. That's just,
I mean, it's just, it's not okay.
Yeah. I'm glad we're on the same page about that.
It used to shock me how vicious the high school circle could be. Or even, not even the high school circle, even in college or young adult, how vicious women can be towards each other.
Yeah.
I never got that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's
guys, we're
internalized
simple
misogyny.
creatures. We'll fight each other and then walk away or go
Right.
have a beer. Just some of the vitriol that go, I mean, it gets nasty sometimes.
Have you seen Mean Girls, Mike?
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
So yeah, it makes me think of the, it's girl world. It has to be sneaky fighting.
You go, Glen Coco,
Yeah.
you go.
It's time for the vocab word of the week.
Sweet.
The
one of my
vocabulary
favorite
word of
sections.
the week. I feel like this word probably describes you, Mike, because it's a complimentary word. So, okay. This week's vocabulary word is indefatigable.
Huh?
Indefatigable.
It's the first one I haven't wanted to sing because I can't say it.
It's difficult to say a little bit, but yes, it is an adjective. INDEFATIGABLE. So in the middle of the word is fatigue. Okay. So this word means persisting tirelessly.
Oh.
So powering through the toxic workplace in a responsible way, taking care of yourself, incapable of being fatigued or untiring. So yeah, it's a word for people like Mike who just keep going no matter how exhausting your job is, the boss is, or the fire is, literally. So indefatigable is what they say they're looking for on job postings until they hire a manager's cousin instead.
I love the vocab word of the week.
Me too.
Oh, good.
I'm also a pretty good fan of Two Truths and a Lie.
Well,
Oh,
we've got a
okay.
little twist on that this week. I just
Yeah.
pasted my list, and we haven't quite named this game yet because I made it up. So I called it 3 questions: strange or fictional jobs. I have just added to the list, to our whatever this thing is, the 5
Outline.
titles, the 5 job titles. One of them is not real. I'm going to tell you the 5 job titles, and then I'm going to give both of you an opportunity to ask me 3 questions total. Okay, you can ask me 3 questions about any of the jobs, 3 questions total. I know the job title, the salary range, a brief description, and the requirements. So you can ask me questions on any of these, all right? So
Okay.
Here we go. Number 1, gumologist. Number 2, tree whisperer. Number 3, certified fog density analyst. Number 4, train pusher. And number 5 is iceberg mover. Now, 4 of
All
these
right.
jobs are actual jobs that exist in the world.
Okay, let's work as a team, Mike.
All right.
Okay, I'm in.
That means
All
you
right.
get 6 because you each get 3.
Okay.
I
What do you
feel
think?
like the certified fog density analyst, I feel like that's just somebody who smokes weed or something.
have to do that when my husband vapes downstairs. I come down, I'm like, how long you been smoking down here, babe? I can't see my hand in front of my face.
I'm not going to count that as a question unless it is.
Not a question,
Okay.
just an assumption, so probably shouldn't do that.
That
I
one
don't know,
feels
Katie, what do
real
you
to
think?
me. I think that one feels real. Now, I will warn you, Ivy's really good at this. She has gotten me with these every time, I think. So my instinct is to say that the tree whisperer is made up. But I don't think it is, because Ivy always gets me. So I'm going to ask you a question about tree whisperer then.
Mhm.
Would this be someone who works for, like, the park service, like a national park?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, one of my hobbies is building model trains.
Mm.
And I have a
Okay.
massive model train platform.
Cool. We love
So-
trains on this podcast.
Train pusher.
Mhm.
Is that synonymous with engineer?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
I
No,
don't know. I'm
it's a-
kind of leaning
that is a
towards
title.
train pusher. Description, please.
Okay. Train pushers, known in Japan as Oshaya, I didn't look up the pronunciation, work at busy subway stations to help commuters board trains during rush hours by gently pushing them from the platform into the train.
That is a real job.
I believe
I've
it.
seen videos of this, and they are not gentle. They are not gentle at all.
Give me the description of an iceberg mover.
Iceberg movers are specialized professionals who navigate and alter the paths of icebergs, ensuring safe maritime travel and protecting oil rigs and coastal installations. The role is ideal for those who love the extremes of nature and are looking for a unique challenge that combines physical work with environmental stewardship.
All right. Mike's leaning over. He's Googling how to become an iceberg mover right now.
I mean, it sounds like a really good job. I'm not going to lie.
Sounds
Are
cool.
you cheating, Mike?
I mean, I might be.
All right. I
What
mean,
is
I
the
believe
other-
that too.
Okay.
Fog density analyst.
Uh-huh.
Is that anything meteorologically related?
Well, it requires a bachelor's degree in meteorology, atmospheric science, or a related natural science field.
Okay, you're scary good at this.
I
don't if
know.
like
Isn't
this.
she good? It's terrifying. Oh, geez.
Which
All
one do you
right.
think, Katie?
Well, the only one we haven't asked about yet is gumologist. So that's my last question. I'm going to ask you, what's the description of the gumologist?
Gumologists are connoisseurs of chewing gum, conducting tests and research to analyze gum quality, flavor, texture, and bubble-making potential. This unique role is perfect for those who appreciate the subtle art of gum creation and want to indulge their taste buds professionally. And I will tell you, without you asking, a bachelor's degree in food science is required.
Okay.
And my
So
former
Violet
boss used to
Beauregard.
keep a bag full of her old used chewed gum. FYI.
Oh, yeah, she
No,
did.
she didn't.
Oh,
She did
gross.
that too?
Okay.
I asked her to stop sticking it to her monitor because it was gross to look at. And when I opened the drawer to get the tape out, she was putting it in a bag.
Ugh. Why?
Somewhere I have a photograph. Anyway.
Ugh. I don't need to see
She
it.
is a case study. Oh, my
I know.
Indeed.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness.
All right.
All right, Mike, I don't know. She's too good at
I'm,
this.
I'm going to take a shot.
Okay,
All right. Are
okay.
we answering together, Katie, or are we giving our own?
I,
answer?
You
I
each
will,
get an
I will
answer.
defer to you. Okay.
My guess is going to be that the job that is not real
Mhm.
is a certified fog density
Okay.
analyst.
Katie.
I'm guessing gumologist.
Okay. So Mike wins. The certified fog density analyst is not real.
1 million points to Mike.
Mhm. AI came up
I
with that.
accept.
However,
AI.
there are people who use these tools in this job for other things. It's just not its own job.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So it's just part of being,
Yeah.
some other kind of weather in.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of the
okay.
other ones are actual jobs.
If you're looking to change careers, you could be a gumologist.
Yeah, I mean gumologists, they they make $40,000 to $60,000 a year. Not shitty, you know.
Not
a
bad for
certified
chewing
fog
gum.
density analyst can make up to $110,000 fake dollars.
Yeah, they live on Monopoly money.
Train pushers
Beautiful.
can make up to $40,000 a year, and iceberg movers can make up to $80,000.
So what does a tree whisperer do?
A tree whisperer is a specialized communicator who intuitively understands and connects with trees, providing insights and care for those natural giants. The role is ideal for those who feel a deep connection to forests and wish to share their unique understanding and appreciation for trees with others.
All right, that's it. I'm quitting my job.
I
I'm gonna
talk
go
to
be a
every tree
whisperer.
that helps me when I'm hiking. I'm sure
I
that
love
people, I
that.
say thank you, friend, to
Uh-huh.
every tree I touch when I'm hiking, whether there's strangers around or not. So I might be a crazy tree whisperer.
That's adorable.
Mhm.
My wife has a deep connection to trees.
Mhm.
And every now and then she sees a tree and she's just like, I'm going to go hug that tree.
Yeah.
And she goes over and just, hi, tree. Thank you.
Can I tell you about my favorite tree I've ever seen?
Yes.
Please.
So this was in Charleston, South Carolina. It's called the angel oak, and it's a live oak tree, which is a type of oak tree.
Mhm.
Doesn't just mean that it's not dead. It is, I think, over 400 years old. And this tree, like the way that the live oak branches grow is they will actually grow out from the trunk and down, like almost into the ground and back up. So it's got this
Oh,
weird, it almost
cool.
looks like a sea anemone or something. It's really, really cool. So they wouldn't let me hug it. I couldn't put my arms all the way around it.
Oh.
But I did go stand and bask in its presence. So
The great oaks
Yay.
are amazing because they're ginormous.
mhm.
And for me, it would be my wife and I went to Maui and we got to see the banyan tree that's there.
Oh my
And
gosh,
And
that's so cool.
that was magical.
Yeah. Oh,
In fact, I have a
that.
great picture. She's in the tree because the branches are ginormous,
Uh-huh.
and she looks tiny compared
Yeah.
to how
I
massive
wonder
this
if
tree
it's the
is.
same
It's awesome.
tree that I saw in Maui that my friend who lives there took us to. It was so big. It was like you went inside it.
Yes,
Is there only one?
it's the only one there, and it was brought there, and I forget who brought it there, and they planted it. It was like 150 years ago because when Maui was devastated by those fires,
Uh-huh.
that tree
Mhm.
burned, and they were afraid it was going to die, and they were actually conservationists were able to save that tree and nurse it back to health.
Hell yeah. Let's go, tree whisperers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally cool. All right. That was fun. Thank you, Ivy, for putting that together. I enjoyed that.
Outstanding.
Mike, where can listeners find you if they're wanting to find you for voiceover or other purposes?
The best thing to do for me right now is to just shoot me an email at mdecello33@gmail if you have any interest at all in having me do some voice work for you or on-camera work or even do some improv writing. MD as in David, ECELLO 33@gmail.com.
Cool.
And the podcast will be coming, and I'll be blasting that out across the universe when we're ready to put that together.
We'll share it.
Yeah, let us know. We'll drop a plug for you because it sounds really cool.
Sweet. Thank you. And thank
Yeah.
you again for having me on. I had a great time. This was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
so did
Yeah.
I.
You're going to
Yeah,
love
we really
doing
enjoyed it.
podcasts.
It's kind of addictive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's my favorite part of my week.
I mean, not for nothing, you guys are really settling into a groove. I mean, it's flowing real nice. So again, thank you for having me on, and
Great.
onward and
course.
upward, as they say.
Yep.
All right. Fantastic. Okay, so thanks for listening to our podcast, everybody.
Yeah.
We so appreciate all 800 and some odd downloads that you guys have given to us. Awesome, awesome. If you would like to share a story with us or perhaps even be a guest on the podcast yourself, you can email us. Our email is stories@badbossdetox.com. And where else can they find us, Ivy?
We've got Facebook, which is Bad Boss Detox, and Instagram is Bad Boss Detox Pod.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go walk through the dense cloud of vape smoke downstairs. And I will see you guys later.
Nice. I got a bunch of dogs to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
I got to go walk my dog too.
Yep.
All
All right,
right.
guys.
See you next
All
time.
right,
Thanks
thank
for
you
coming
again.
on,
Have
Mike.
a great time, you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.